Coach, when you looked at it, reviewing the film, and what kind of just didn't work for you guys, and what were some areas that you could still need some improvement in?
Yeah, just didn't play well, and weren't able to execute some of the things that we had and plays that were there, especially early on. We had some combinations that we just weren't able to hit on, weren't able to complete, and those were possible big hits for us. So we didn't play well. We battled extremely hard, and just continued to fight, and then just weren't able to make the plays that we needed, and we didn't take care of the ball, obviously. And anytime you turn the ball over that many times, no matter who you're playing, it always leans yourself to that opportunity to not come up with a win, and that's what happened.
All right. Sterlin, I'm pretty sure you don't go into a game wanting to run Deontay 50 times, but just the way the game unfolded, that I'm sure that you felt that was what was best. But when it was over, were you stunned by that number? I mean, did you know he had that?
Yeah, I
kind of
didn't quite know it was that high. Didn't know it was that number, but he's a different back. How big he is and what he's able to sustain and what he's able to do because of who he is and the preparation and the training that he's put in and what the condition he's put himself in and his body in. So, it's rare for a guy to be able to do that. He's a guy that can handle those kind of carries and that workload.
You guys have had some success throughout the year on the offensive line despite having to rotate in a lot of different combinations. Why have you guys been able to sustain that success despite the different faces up there?
Yeah, I think to be just clear with all that, we haven't played 2 games in a row with the same 5. So that to go back to just what you're talking about and then be able to continue the success with our run game and pass pro. I really put it with Coach Maddox and then really put it with those kids because those are the guys that still got to go out and execute, and they got to do it. So, what we've done is going back to the spring and summer, and then obviously with camp, those guys have just put themselves in a situation, to be the next man up. And obviously as the seasons went on, like I said, we haven't played 2 games in a row with the same 5. So with that happening, you have constant rotation. You're getting constant reps with guys. So guys have just ended up with a lot of meaningful reps. And those guys have just, they've been quality, and they've stepped up and they've played. And we've missed some of those guys when other guys have had to go play and when they fill in. But we've just continued to battle, and those kids have continued to battle and go out and execute and still able to have success on the ground and as well as our pass pro.
On the left over here, Mike.
Sterlin, Tyrone's about to play his last game at Texas, and when you took over, I'm sure he was a kid who wanted to start at quarterback. What were your impressions of him and kind of how he handled that? I'm sure it was disappointing for him to not get that, and kind of just what he's meant for you guys all year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to put words in his mouth. I know that's probably, I knew it was a disappointing deal. I mean, you're a senior and a true freshman comes on campus and wins the job. So, but the thing about him that as soon as that happens is the word that pops in my mind is just unselfish. Okay, and he's a high character kid. He'll go down as one of my favorite kids that I've ever coached. And that's just what he carries about himself. And as soon as it happened, he just went into a mode of helping Shane. I mean, what he does have is some experience of playing football at the University of Texas, and those are a few things that he was able to pass on to Shane. Obviously in our meeting room every day and being with him, pretty much side by side with all those reps. And then as the season went on, as y'all know, we got bumped to some running back reps as well as still doing his 18-wheeler stuff. So he's just a guy, when that moment happened, that he was willing to do whatever it took to help us win. And like I said, the word unselfish is the first word that comes to my mind about him in that situation. And, he's just a guy that's bought in with what we were doing and was willing to do and be put in whatever position to help us have success on Saturday.
Right, Anwar?
Coach, where would you say that you guys overall are as a team? It was a disappointing loss against Kansas. I'm sure you know that your players showed up on Monday to support Coach Strong. Just a lot of questions about his future. So, can you just give me some insight there?
Yeah, our kids, again, it's a short turnaround because we play on Friday. So, you know, within that, I mean, you got to flip back and you got to go back. You got to go back to work. And, you know, part of our deal was you can either be bitter, or you can be better. And, you know, that's the role we take. And let's go get better. Let's turn around. It's a fast turnaround. We need to go win this TCU game. We need to get our seniors in a bowl game. And that way our seniors can have that and experience that. And what I talked about a couple weeks ago, what it'll provide is those opportunities, those extra practice for these freshmen and these young guys. And, you know, that's our main focus right now. And you know, that's where our guys' focus is, hey, let's go work hard. You know, let's continue to get better. Let's continue to grow and stay on our progress.
Brian? Sterling, we may not see you for a while after this, just the way the schedule is and the setup is. What in your mind have been the real successes for the offense this year, and what in your mind are things that you'd like to have a mulligan on?
You know, just when I look at it in the big picture, you don't know exactly what you're going to get or how it's going to end up. I mean, you just think back to when I got here. You know, you don't even know who's going to be the quarterback at that time. So you don't have a great picture. You got to evaluate and you got to look at as everything goes on from the time I stepped on campus. So, you know, you look at us right now, and you say we're one of the top 20, you know, total offenses in the nation. We got the #1 single rusher in the nation. You know, to look back and say, hey, if someone would have guaranteed that when I stepped on campus, you might have would have winced at it for a second. You know, so to sit here with that, as young as we are, and the growth that we've made, and you know what Shane's done, and just like we just talked about with the rotation of an offensive line and not playing 2 games in a row with the same 5. I mean, we've battled through adversity. Our kids have continued to fight. They've continued to respond. So, you know, have we made mistakes along the way? Absolutely. Have we played consistently the way we want to? We're close with that. You know, we've had our ups and downs, but at times we've played really well, and we've obviously shown a lot of bright spots and a lot of progression through all those spots, you know, with guys moving positions and guys having to fill in. And then you just take Shane at the quarterback position, you know, and just like I said, it's every rep has been a growth rep. Everything is an experience, you know, and then you go in and not only is it an experience, but now it's an evaluated experience. He gets to go back and we watch the film with him, obviously practice film, you know, so there's just steady growth with that. So, you know, that's the thing that I take from the season and where we're at right now. And, yeah, I mean, just that's what we've talked about, always progress, never regress. We just talk about growth, getting better, make sure we're battling, make sure we're competing, make sure we're you know, our hydration, you know, our condition, and all those things continue to increase and continue to progress as the season has went on. And they've obviously stayed bought into that, and obviously have stayed focused with the things that we've asked them to do.
Even though Deontay's been extremely successful, his workload is obviously high. What does Kyle Porter need to do to be able to spell for him more and be able to give Deontay a rest?
You know, it's just he's a young guy, and the thing you can't do with those young guys, there's no fast forward button with them. You know, so what you get is the reality of what you get with a freshman, and you know, like he fits in the same mold with Shane. Just growth and reps and seeing it. You know what's been a little different, which he's done a great job adapting to and adjusting to, is, you know, Kyle came from a little bit different offense than the vast majority of running backs, especially Texas high school running backs. You know, he didn't play in a spread offense, so there's been a little adjustment about that and seeing and feeling his way through that. But what he's done, the same thing I just said, you know, there's no fast forward button with those freshman guys, and you just continue to push them, you continue to coach them. You lay out what you want them to do and what Coach Johnson's asked those guys to do, and how to execute our offense and pass pro and our run scheme, and you know that's something he's done. So you know there's nothing he can do right now other than just what he's done. He's an extremely hard worker. I mean, he comes from one of the top programs in the state in Katy, and he knows how to work, and he knows how to put himself in a situation. To be the backup guy right now, go in and get meaningful reps and be able to produce when he's on the field. So, you know, he's doing exactly what we've asked him to do, and we're excited about his growth and his development in the future.
On the left here, Jeff. Sterling, kind of 2 questions. One, any update on Shaq and Jake McMillan and what their availability is this week? And then 2, we saw Caleb Blewett yesterday in the boot and on crutches. What has his his unselfishness meant to you and this team, and kind of describe his role, and kind of going from a guy who caught passes last year to who was more in kind of that blocking role this year?
Yeah, I'm not going to answer anything on those injuries, but just Caleb, as far as his unselfishness, he's done a really good job. And the thing about him, he's athletic. He's a big, strong, physical kid, and he's done again, like those other guys, he's bought in what we've asked him to do, and sometimes that can be a tough transition. Where all of a sudden you caught X amount of balls a year ago, and now all of a sudden your role's kind of reversed what we're asking you to do for us to be successful, and he's done that. I mean, it goes in like those 5 guys up front, and those guys are a part of that run scheme and run game too. So, we don't have those kind of numbers and that kind of production without, him and Beck being productive and being able to do their job and do it at a high level. So, just excited about him and glad he's at where he's at and what he's able to do for us on Saturdays.
Coach, there were a lot of players on Monday who we spoke to were pretty emotional when talking about Coach Strong. As a guy who's been around him, why do you think that he deserves another year here at Texas?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Coach is, I didn't have much of a background with Coach. I just learned and talking to people that had been around him. And it didn't take me long once I was on campus. One thing I knew, that one value of ours that matched tremendously was about how we care and how we treat kids, and how he treats people, but especially kids. And that's where it all starts. And I know that's one thing Coach has done since he's been here is about relationships, about core values, and just trying to lead. And I mean, we're in the kid business. And one thing I learned a long time ago from an old coach was, if they're not getting it from us, for a lot of our kids in their situations, we don't want them getting it from somewhere else. And I know that's one thing that Coach has always done with these kids that have been on campus. He's done a great job of mentoring them. He's done a great job of leading them, and directing them down the right path. And, like Coach has said, with our staff and where we're at right now with the young football team, we're really excited about the future.
Anything else?
I'm not sure. The Joe Moore Award, I believe, was for the best offensive line unit. What can you say about them being able to deserve that and the job Coach Maddox has done to get that honor at this point?
I don't know what you're speaking of.
They were a finalist for the Joe Moore, which is the offensive line of the year, semifinals.
Okay, yeah. Well, I was unaware of that. Well, congratulations to our guys. Well, that does. It goes back to what I just talked about. I mean, Coach Maddox has done a great job with those guys. But as coaches, we can give you the information, we can give you the scheme, we can give you the plan. But those 5 guys got to go out there and they got to execute it. So, and if that's with that being said, what we just talked about again, we haven't played 2 games in a row with the same 5. So to be able to produce and do what we've done with a rotation of a front 5 and a true freshman quarterback, I mean, that says something for those guys and those kids of their growth, their battle, their maturity, and the things they wanted to get done and get accomplished this year. But that's a huge feat, just like I just said, with those guys not playing 2 games in a row with the same 5 and still being up for that award and being able to have the top running back in the nation, single rusher. That's huge to our kids, and it doesn't surprise me because those guys are unselfish. They've battled, they've bought in, they've went the next man up mentality, and they've obviously been able to do it. And I'm really proud and excited for those kids with being mentioned in that for that award.
Anything else? All right, thank you, Sterling. Thanks, Sterling.
Thanks, guys.